And we are back, as we're recording a
It's
double episode.
it's
Uh,
like we've never been away.
yeah, so if you're watching on YouTube, we're exactly the same thing. But it's always to have like a bank of episodes. So I'll mention it now again that on the 13th of October, in a venue in Chatham, Rochester, we're gonna start a film night, and we're gonna be playing Evil Dead. So that's a church meeting to be. Uh, those things are not happening. We do it. We do them only. So keep an eye on our meet on socials. Not the socials. We only are on Facebook. Uh, when we're gonna make it public and just the final, a few things to finalize. But the venue has been confirmed. And so
Exciting
yeah,
stuff.
so uh, that's why my voice still sound closed because we're recording back to back, and I was like from decapitated last night. Uh, I'm not gonna repeat what happened. Go watch the last episode, previous episode.
I was going to say
Uh,
you were watching Decapitated the night before the last recording.
yeah, yeah, it's like
Deja
uh,
vu.
deja vu. Yeah,
If only I knew what we were talking about this time.
yeah. So it was. So let me open. Come on. So what we're saying, like, how can Christians engage with heavy metal culture in a productive and meaningful way without compromise their faith?
Crikey.
That's a long one.
That is
It's like an essay, like for GCSEs in English or something. Like,
possibly not listening on headphones during the sermon. I don't know. Um, are the two related?
which
Listen
one?
to the last episode.
What do you
Uh,
mean? You like
well,
engage
I've
with
forgotten
heavy
the
metal
question.
culture?
What's it? Oh, I
How
lost
how
the
can
question.
Christians engage with heavy metal culture in a productive and meaningful way without compromising their faith? I think to start from the end, compromise your faith is kind of it's I think, and I was talking with one of the guys that he was with Pastor Bob. So for those who don't know, Pastor Bob was Pastor Bob Beamam. Pastor Bob is literally the Archbishop of Christian metalheads. He was the very first one that done ever like imagine having like a proper ministry like around heavy metal and reaching out to people into the heavy metal scene with Jesus' message basically. So he was they were doing a lot of I want to say outreaching. At the same time, I don't like this word when it comes to. It's like you go somewhere you're not already. So they were doing. They were going to clubs, a lot of goth clubs, and so there was Dave, the guy's Dave. So Dave was still saying that there were certain people that they will never take them with them in the clubs because like within like a few minutes they will get absorbed. They'll start doing drugs. They'll start getting like ecstasies or whatever was sold illegally within
Yeah.
the. So I think it's at the same time it's a decision you have to make on your own, but at the same time it's a decision that if you're part of a team, that sometimes the older god of the team has to make for you to protect you. So I think it's like the two layers of that. Like if you're mature enough to understand where your weaknesses are,
Yeah.
so make a conscious decision that I can't do that. Oh, sorry. And I used to be like this, but now, literally, I don't think there's any place. I think like the only place probably I wouldn't go is a strip club. Uh, I know like mission like Ton, Tony Campolo was going to strip clubs because he was invited from a dancer that he was minister.
Okay.
Personally, I wouldn't do it because, like, not that it's like I don't. It's a personal thing that
Yeah.
I understand my own weaknesses.
No, that's fair
Uh,
enough. Yeah.
so I think like put it into context. Like everyone has to you know try to understand their own weaknesses
But I think
and
that's the same with any
whether
sort of
their integrity will get compromised, basically.
yeah. But any sort of context for that sort of work, you've got to know yourself. You've got to know your team, whatever. I mean, you can say it's not necessarily metal specific.
I mean, I think that's why
You know,
probably
the same issues with drugs and alcohol.
yeah.
You could apply for context I find myself in a lot of the time, with the added thing of sort of being surrounded by a lot of vulnerable people who could easily be manipulated.
I mean, that was like I
And
remember Rob Halford was saying because he's sober for like for 20 years now or something.
hmm,
Uh, and he was saying like a lot of times you go out to the pubs and with friends, and it is a bit of a struggle. And it's like I would love to have like a one drink like with my friends, but then I know he was saying like if I have one drink, it won't be one drink. It will be like
yeah,
hundreds of them.
yeah.
So, and I
'Cause
don't want to. But I admire his integrity and his what's the word?
there's a strength of character there
Yes,
to
strength of
even
character. Like he said, like
yeah
you know,
go in a
at
pub.
the same time,
Yeah,
I know I cannot drink, but at the same time, I feel strong enough to be around alcohol
yeah.
without great, stretching my arm and.
But that is a case of knowing yourself and knowing your strengths and your weaknesses, isn't it?
I said that the
Uh,
other day was Brian Wells from Korn. He posted a picture with a Corona, and he was like, "I would love so much to have you right now, but I know I can't." Because he knows where he was when he was a drink. And I think all of them at Korn, they're sober now. No one drinks like anything. The
wow.
whole band. So when he left, Phil in the meantime became a Christian, but the other two also went through like a whole journey of self-discovery, and all of them they're sober.
Mm.
And it was like for some reason someone took it like it's alcohol, like should be drinking it. I'm like he doesn't drink it. Like, what's wrong with alcohol? On its own. What's wrong
Yeah,
with alcohol? Like alcohol on its own, there's nothing wrong with it. Someone drinks, can go out and socially drink a few drinks and then get a cab back home and go
it's
to
fine.
bed.
Yeah,
And someone else can be like drinking and fall into Medway River and then be looking for them for the next few days and they found their corpse.
yeah.
So nothing
And
on
and,
its
and
own, like it's alcohol.
and some people have a few drinks and they get a bit sleepy and that's it. And some people have a few drinks and they get violent and start hurting people. You
I
know,
mean,
it's being responsible about and knowing these
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah,
I think and the last part of that very long question is talking about without compromising your faith. And I mean, part of that involves, if as a Christian metalhead, you're going to go into, a metal-based environment, being true to that faith, not compromising. Yeah, I'm a Christian, so what? You want to talk about it? That's fine. We'll talk about it. That's my thing. I don't mess with your thing. Um, if 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 you feel the need to hide it, you know, if you normally wear a cross and you take your cross off to go into a gig,
yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
there's not much I can hide, to be honest.
I mean,
After
no, I mean,
10 minutes,
it's
uh,
not a lot of outward signs.
I make sure that I cannot. But to what you're saying, like sometimes, I mean, I was like shirtless because, like, if you know, you can't be in a closed venue, like closed, like in an indoors venue, moshing with your shirts on. that. It becomes too, and literally you cannot breathe. You're taking it
Yeah,
off and you start breathing better, basically, because your body can ventilate better. Like my tattoos was like in full show, like it
yeah,
was there for anyone to see. Did anyone see them? I don't know. Did anyone bother? Definitely no.
yeah. I mean,
Because all of my worth was like how much I could hurt them in the pit. But that's the whole thing. It's also like that beautiful contradiction, isn't it? Like you go into that like with all your Christian symbols, and you go into the pit, and you go like as brutal as everyone else. So I think if someone was noticing and you create like you meet people. If I was meeting people there and like carry on like talking about, or if I by accident meet someone
yeah,
at some point, I think it creates a sort of appreciation, like and a sort of like curiosity.
yeah,
So it's like you say you're Christian and like you're running a church and kind of like, but at the same time, I remember you at the pit. You like
yeah.
you didn't hold it back. Like,
Yeah. Which is a conversation starter. And actually, I mean, it
yeah.
was we've said on various of these things. One of the joys of the metal community is actually you're allowed to express yourself,
Mm. You can
and
be
your
yourself
faith.
basically.
Yeah, you can be yourself, and your faith is just another way of expressing. And I don't
Mm.
know that anyone would care whether you're a Christian or not. They
I
either
think also because the last
agree with
few
you or they
years,
don't.
we have a lot of like mainstream musicians
Yeah,
coming into faith, like Dave Mustaine. Although he's a bit, yeah, weird, Mustaine, like with his faith is, I don't know, he's quite conservative. So yeah, there'll be a few controversies around it, depending from which side of the fence you are. But he's a Christian. Brian Wells, Phil D. Uh,
Nico
who
McBain.
else? Nico McBrain. I mean, the Maiden in general, they were always self-described as Christians, self-identified as Christians.
There's a lot of Christian lyrics or
Yeah, and
Bible-based
yeah. Also, a
lyrics.
lot of their songs are like, and some of the songs like
Yeah,
straight out Christian,
yeah,
like the name of the cross, and I think uh, they have another one from a couple of records back, which was like 35 minutes long. Was like,
mm,
I listened to it. Blackie from Wasp. Uh, he literally wrote a full worship album.
so is this an appropriate time to say if anyone out there is interested in reading stories from some of these people, we have a good range of metal Bibles that we'd be delighted to give
Yeah.
you,
What is it?
full of testimonies and good stories. And I
Good
wish
call.
I
I
had
completely
one to wave
forgot.
in front of you.
Good. Yeah, I don't know. There it is. I have one here.
Mine's in the other room.
What? What is it? Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
I need
Yeah,
to put a
a
green.
metal
Yeah, that's the
Bible.
one. So if you
So,
are, so if you are around in Kent, we can get you one. Kent, like North Kent area, we can
yeah,
get you one. If you're watching from somewhere further away, get in touch with them. They have a UK distributor, so you can, because ourselves we give them for free,
yeah.
but someone paid for
Particularly
them.
particularly if you come along to the film night on the
Yeah,
13th of
so we
October.
always have them with us. So we keep them like we keep them, give them to people that they're a lot more closer to our community. So if you're like somewhere further away, get in touch with them. You have to buy it, but it is what it is. Like for this, we give them for free, but someone paid for those. Uh,
But yeah,
so
so there's a lot of good tales of the difference that Christianity has made in the life of some of the people that George was mentioning. And there's a whole New Testament in there to tell you more about it.
yeah,
All right, plug
and
over, back to the questions.
I think the whole this whole thing, it kind of start breaking that stereotype.
Yeah,
So when you have suddenly like your favorite band, guitarist or drummer, suddenly confessing a faith, it's kind of like it kind of breaks that barrier. It's not like now anymore, like like Striper, for instance. Like, Uh,
So,
so
so having said that, I was at again not a sort of southern metal, Blackstone Cherry. I don't know if you've heard of them. They were playing at Wembley Arena a few years back, and it got to the bit of a set where the rhythm guitarist decided he was going to thank everybody, um, and he was going, thanks to the sound crew, and everyone cheers, and thanks to the lighting, and everyone cheers, and goes through the whole tour entourage, and then he said, and most of all, thank you, Jesus, and you could have heard a pin drop. It was hilarious. The entire Wembley Arena just went silent. He said, "What?" Because I mean, I think at the time, 3 out of the 4 of them were Christians.
yeah,
And actually, Chris Robertson, the lead singer, has got such an incredibly moving testimony on YouTube. Sort of search on YouTube for it. Chris Robertson of Blackstone Cherry, his testimony of how finding faith through talking to his other bandmates brought him out of depression and alcoholism and all sorts of dark places. Um,
I'm gonna make something in brackets, quotes here. I mean, I know from testimonies like people go through depression and the mental health
yeah,
as a faith process. That definitely happens, but if you're struggling with everyone struggles with those things, don't take from anyone that Jesus necessary faith in Jesus will help because it's throughout the Bible.
it's part of a process.
It's part of the process. Sometimes you might go, but I think is maybe you see it in the prophets. I mean, prophets they were always depressed anyway. Like all
Oh
the
man,
prophets in the Old Testament, they're highly depressed.
and David,
Uh,
man,
David
was,
was David, I think probably was bipolar as well.
yeah, yeah, that's an interesting take. Yeah,
I heard once. I was listening to an interview from this girl. That the subject, the title of the interview was "I'm religious, not spiritual," and because she's autistic, so she was saying that autistic people they've really struggled on the whole mystical thing of Christian of faith.
yeah, yeah,
And I mean, it's a lot more to this than I'm saying right now, but it's kind of like if you want to see it, you can find it on the Nomad podcast. I'm religious, not spiritual. It's a very nice, very interesting
yeah.
interview. I need to listen. But she was saying like she's suspecting Apostle Paul was autistic because he has a lot of autistic traits that single-mindedness that he was like this is it. I'm not taking it
Yeah,
any. uh, But
yeah,
obviously
very,
you wouldn't know, like. But it's kind of like it was a very interesting observation, basically. But yeah,
yeah, okay.
that was
Cool.
wanted to say because, like, I'm a mental health geek. So
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I wasn't saying there's so any
no, no,
depression
I
is
know you,
cured
I know
by,
you won't say
but
it. But it's kind of
what?
I have to put it out there for anyone listening,
Yeah,
from both
and
sides, basically, both
and
Christians and
and
non-Christians.
absolutely, and seek professional advice.
Yeah, always go with professional
Or,
advice. Yeah.
Um,
Professional
but yeah, I
support,
mean,
basically.
but when he was in a very low place, um, he found hope in the message
Hmm.
and the support he received from his Christian colleagues, and it managed to help him, get a handle on his drinking, get a handle on life, come back, sort of bouncing back basically from where he
Hmm.
was. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's maybe more acceptable, but it still causes a little bit of surprise, I think, in big venues. But is where I was
Yeah,
going with all that.
because I think people are reasonably skeptical. So are you gonna make it an evangelistic event now? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
he wasn't doing the sort of let's stop and have a prayer or sort of right now I'm going to preach to you.
Yeah, but I think it was like
And
a
you know
bit
that,
like uncalled and like
yeah.
people a bit like
But
I don't know.
fair play to him. You know, he was giving God the glory for what was a very good show. A bunch of musicians having a good time. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and you know, that was important to him. So uh, it was bold, certainly. It also went out on the DVD. They did a DVD of the tour, and yeah.
like, so they
So
didn't
that's
edit it out.
no, it's all in there.
I mean, to be
And it
honest,
was
on the other hand, it kind of makes like a point of like, how many people will ask him on interviews about this.
yeah, it's a talking point.
Mm.
It led to yeah, it'll lead to interview questions. It'll lead to someone in a bedroom feeling very conflicted, thinking, actually, Ben says it's okay. You know, it's who
Yeah,
knows.
yeah. I think the whole mental health and faith is quite complicated, and we
Oh,
actually did an episode. So if you want to go back and watch it for more details, but yeah, it hasn't been. And I might upset some people, but at the same time, I don't believe Christian counseling is a good idea. Uh, that's my personal opinion to that. And if someone's happy with it, deal with it. I don't care. Uh, this is my take. I don't believe Christian counseling is a good thing for various reasons. I did not have the time to go through it, but that's my opinion. Go see like not a non-Christian counselor, someone that doesn't wear the title Christian. In the UK, like in America, it's a big issue because a lot of the counselors they force faith. Where in the UK, you can find a lot of like Christian and different counselors that they spiritual, but they don't really force any of their faith into. It obviously informs the way they practice, but it does. They don't like really like so try to present their spirituality as a solution.
and I think
And
yeah, I mean that's important. As I mentioned before, sort of context I'm working in, or sort of encountering, not working, but uh, dealing with a lot of people with addiction issues and such like. But also, there's a lot of people with mental health issues and learning restrictions and all sorts of things. And the risk of spiritual abuse is colossal and it's real. And, you know, people in leadership in those contexts do training to make sure they recognize that. But, we come across cases where, people have been manipulated to do things they'd rather not do because someone they trust has said, "Oh well, God said it's all right," and things like this.
mm,
Which you know, and I think what you're saying about Christian counselling, that can be an extension, a more complex and deeper risk there. It's counselling should be neutral
mm.
from that point of view.
I mean,
Yes,
in the UK, it's done all right, but how like Christian, like when you wear the title, because I have seen like the curriculum on training, and most of it's biblical studies, and it's not so much like mental health studies,
yeah,
which is like raises a question of, like how well trained are you basically on what because if you're spending the same amount of time I spend on
yeah.
training and half of your training is on biblical studies, then like
Half of it isn't.
half
Yeah,
of it
on
isn't
what you should.
basically like, half
Yeah,
of it isn't mental health basically like
yeah.
how you it's
I
kind
mean,
of like
there's also. I mean, it's a strange concept anyway. I mean, if you were going in for heart surgery and the doctor and the surgeon was a Christian, you'd still expect him to cut you open, and you wouldn't expect him to just lay hands on you and pray, would you? I
yeah,
mean, yes, we know that people can pray and people are healed, but he's a professional and he's there to do heart surgery. So yeah, I do find the sort of Christian counselling concept a little bit sort of distorted before it even starts.
Yeah. Anyway,
If you're a
we
counsellor, you're a counsellor. But
we
anyway, we're
digressing.
off topic. But we haven't mentioned Monty Python yet, so we're all right.
Monty Python. Well, but we mentioned like Jay and Silent Bob. Oh, that was like the last episode. Sorry.
Oh, episode blur. No idea. I'm sure you've got it in there somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think,
So
yeah, it's maintaining your credibility as a Christian is just about being Christian, being yourself. It's like, I mean, you were talking earlier about going into metal scenes as mission or outreach or whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's evangelism with a small e. But all that is just being open and honest about what you believe.
yeah,
And it's not trying to browbeat people. It's not trying to threaten people. It's not trying to convince people. It's throwing out an invitation. If they're interested, you have a discussion. But there's nothing you're going to say to make any difference. That's
yeah,
between them and God.
yeah,
But you can only do that if you're open and honest about who you are. I guess putting it on the sort of, I tend to do it sort of the other way around. So I'll wear band T-shirts in the church.
Tell me about it. I was
Which,
wearing a death T-shirt once, and so one with a death at the back. It has like life will not last, and the other one was the cannibal corpse, which that kind of
well, that
raises
could
an
start some
eyebrow.
conversations. Yeah,
So I don't know how it's gonna play in the worship band. I don't know if I mentioned it, but yeah, I'm helping out playing bass at the worship band at the Salvation Army. So I don't know. I already have my strap with all the skulls in there. So
absolutely. But it's so I'll wear sort of band T-shirts, gig T-shirts into church, and people come up to me and say, "Oh, but you're a Christian. I didn't know you listened to that," and it starts a conversation.
but even for me,
And
like I remember we did the Medway Mile. So whoever is not from the area, it's like a sport activity they run from the council once a year. The Salvation Army was invited there to the band to play. So I went there like to see if I can speak with people, like give some metal Bibles. But the location they gave us wasn't very good, so nothing much. I couldn't interact with many people, but they would give you some free T-shirts, and the T-shirts were given. Probably they would got kids, students to volunteer. And one kid is coming like, oh, it's like a very good. I was wearing Cannibal Corpse T-shirt, and it's like, oh, that's a very good. I love your T-shirt. It's like, are you listening to Cannibal? Yeah, yeah. It's like so. So we have like a 2 minutes exchange,
yeah,
which it didn't lead anywhere. But it's kind of like a lot of times, like if you keep talking, it's kind of like you
but
you you keep they
you,
keep observing you more, and it's kind of like you actually they are start asking the questions, and like you go looking for trouble. So
yeah,
now you have to listen to me because you asked. I didn't. I didn't come to you to tell you anything. You came to me and asked. So, and also
but
I think it makes it also legitimize the message
yeah.
because like you asked for you came to me and asked. So like then I have your permission to talk
So
about you what I believe and how I reconcile those things.
yeah, and that leads to other things. And you say the conversation didn't go anywhere. You don't know what influence that had
Yeah, we
in the
might meet
future.
again at some point, like that kind of
But
like
or it's he might have gone away thinking, wow, if he can look like that, I can be uncool too. You know.
Yeah, I mean,
um,
I don't. I'm not
so,
sure if he understood what I'm doing there, but like, it
well,
was
that's
like a
something else.
an interesting encounter, basically. Like,
Yeah,
put it this way. Uh, but
but
yeah, so
you never know the power of those encounters because it could just be one
hmm,
step along a whole chain of encounters. It's
yeah, I
what
think sometimes Christians fall into this trap of like and I want to be the one that converts that person. Like you
Yeah,
actually, you're not even the, you will never be even that, because like it's the Holy Spirit that does all the
yeah.
job.
Well, that's what I was saying about sort of going
You're
in
just
the
being the decide.
evangelism.
You're just being the decide not to be a jerk, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
mean, you cannot persuade anyone to come to faith. That's between them and God. You know, you can
and
help them. You can
sometimes
pray.
people cannot come to faith because of their traumas,
Yeah,
but you can at least like be a part of their their personal spiritual journey,
yeah.
because they might end up experience the divine in their own way without outside of the Christian context, and experiencing Jesus outside of the Christian context, because their
But even
trauma
take.
is too big to be, they cannot, even like walking outside the church can be triggering.
But even
And
having
that's
the
not
conversation and
that's not like uncommon, to be honest. That's what I'm saying. It's not like
yeah.
a small example. Like a lot. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
it's a big thing, especially within the pagan community. A big
Okay.
number of them, they grew up in church, and they also been traumatized in church. So they have a
Ah,
big dislikeness for
yeah.
Christians.
We come a lot across a lot of people who've been hurt by church, whether it's just non-acceptance of who they are, rejection because of their mental health issues, or even on some occasions we hear tales of abuse. Yeah, it's awful. Um, but sometimes just having a conversation and acknowledging that and acknowledging the issues they're facing gives them a little bit more self confidence, maybe a little bit of hope that there are people who listen to
It
them.
legitimizes their own experience, basically.
Yeah, and that can be a start of a big thing. Being accepted for who they are is can be a major part of actually turning that around.
I mean, I have heard experiences like described it to them from a couple I know, that they go into pagan festivals and everyone's like dressed with horse and like phone and like fairies
Sounds great fun.
and it's a very spiritual experience, and like not like with like the spirits of the forest or something. Like some of them they have like actual like experience with the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, they're
Well,
like
God can even be in a pagan festival.
yeah. I think like it goes like when you kind of putting God in the Christian box.
Yeah.
So you can only be a believer if you're a Christian. Uh, but Jesus said, "You're not gonna recognize my followers by their titles." He says, "You're gonna recognize them by the fruit." So how someone decides to call themselves, for me, it's not an indication of if they're following Jesus or not. They might not say that or identify Jesus as like the one they follow, but nevertheless they still follow him. They follow the
Well,
message.
I mean, yeah, I mean that's a tricky one. I mean, Jesus says, "I am the way, the truth, and the life."
Yeah,
Says,
I mean
no
that's
one comes to the
it's a
Father
bit
except through
tricky
me."
because
Um,
for
but that,
me,
that that doesn't deny that there are good people who don't have a faith.
hmm. But then I said like it's like because the whole thing becomes more complex. Is that like you go into like their personal experiences, how they've been traumatized, and or what they saw, and then run away from faith, and uh,
But are they running away from faith, or are they running from faith as others would like them to express it?
yeah, I mean
Which is the
it's
other
a
thing.
very complex issue. It's not like black and white. So it's not like
Yeah,
calling yourself a Christian or non, as like you would say.
it's sort
Uh,
of like you were in one of your interviews. I forget which one where you're saying the sort of the guy was talking to someone from a black metal band, and it
Ah, yeah.
turns out
It was
that
from Mayhem. He was interviewing
yeah,
the singer of Mayhem. Yeah.
that's it, yeah, and sort of found out actually they had quite a lot in common, and what they
Yeah.
both really disliked was the church. It had nothing to do with Christianity, but it was the
Yeah.
organisation of the church.
Yeah. He
Uh,
was saying like, I like Jesus. Like, Jesus is a very cool dude. And, like,
yeah,
uh,
and yeah, I mean, there are different ways of
but
following.
that's a common ground, isn't it? That was because someone wearing the title Christian wasn't afraid to sit down and he was telling me, Andy was funny because he was telling me he was more nervous than I was. So he was more nervous him interviewed by a pastor than me interviewing a Satanist. Like,
Well, we won. I mean, that's fair.
yeah. And then he asked also because everyone had like 20 minutes, and he asked specifically to have another 20 minutes with him. So I was
Yeah,
like, no, I want another slot with him
yeah. I
because
like this guy.
all interviewers they had like 20 minutes. So it was like a line, like so. Yeah, yeah. I think it's like again, to that like he wasn't afraid. Yeah. At the same
It's
time, I
it.
think like with Christians, we been raised within churches to be afraid of everything.
Yeah,
Yeah, so when it only comes into metal, it's kind of like metal is the scariest thing that they can interact,
I,
isn't it?
I
All
guess.
the
Yeah, I mean,
imagery and the lyrics and the shows and like
I wasn't really brought up in the church, so I guess I sort of
not necessarily
came
even
late to
when
the
you go to
party. But
church, like as a metalhead, and you join like a traditional church. It's like
yeah,
you know, they beat metal out of you basically, like,
yeah,
all the
and
trying.
I mean, I guess if I look back, I say now, I'll happily walk into church with a band T-shirt. I might not have done that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
In part because I didn't want to offend the people, different church and different attitudes, and
Mm.
didn't want to offend people. Now maybe I don't mind provoking the conversation, shall we say?
I think for me it's also
Um,
about making a statement.
yeah,
So making a statement of like, you know, we exist, deal with it,
yeah,
and
and,
also it makes a statement to people. You may have like families joining at your church, and they have a teenage
yeah,
child that is into black metal, and then like they seeing you with your proud with your band T-shirt, and like, and they kind of like, okay, like it turns out I can be both.
yeah.
Both are
I
legitimate.
we went to visit a church. Helen was doing a talk at a church, and there was a family there, and the sort of teenage boy was sort of moping along behind the rest of the family, and he had sort of spiked hair and I think it was an Iron Maiden T-shirt or something. And I just said, "Oh, cool shoe, cool shirt. You like Maiden?" And as he walked, he walked past and acknowledged me and sort of, cheers, and walked taller as he walked into church. It was because I was there as part of the visiting
I
speakers,
think you made
whatever.
him feel like sin, basically.
Yeah, it just it made him feel normal. He was just trying to, you know, not really sure if he should be there, and that sort of funny age, mid-teens, where do you go along with your family, or do you mope in your bedroom or whatever?
Yeah,
Um, and just that little thing. Yeah, maybe after that he thought, actually, it's okay. Who knows? I mean, but like to think to do some good in the world.
yeah. I mean, you can always just be part of their
It's
journey for as much as.
yeah, it's just been real, and he'll work stuff out for himself.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, I think we exhaust everything we have to say.
I'm exhausted. If that counts.
I mean, I'm exhausted from yesterday, and I have
I
a
bet.
very early start tomorrow. But
Uh,
yeah, I think we can wrap this
so
episode
that's a wrap.
here. And so I'm not sure when this is gonna be live, but if it's before the 13th of October, then yeah, keep an eye on our socials for the film night, Evil Dead, and free popcorn.
And metal Bibles.
Yeah,
And if you're watching on Dave, sorry you missed it.
on Dave, like in 30 years' time. It took me a second to
Um,
get the reference. You see, I don't watch. You see, I don't watch TV. Like,
well, you got it. Someone will have
yeah,
been listening. I don't know.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
So
so
we're going to wrap it up.
wrap it up, and
Yeah,
yeah,
follow the
so
Facebook thing. Keep an eye on new developments. And I guess we'll see you. Well,
June.
you'll see us next time.
Yeah, after next time. Bye, bye.
Bye. God bless.